In my journey as a filmmaker and a publisher of Hoopla Club, a magazine for children, I realized that there are people who are doing wonderful stuff. Stuff that is helping bring about a difference in themselves as individuals and the world around them. These people I felt, needed to be identified, appreciated, and given a platform to share something which I felt was very precious. Stories. Stories about their lives, their journey, their efforts to bring about a change. It could be something as small as a child helping a mom in the kitchen, or it could be a parent who has brought up a special needs child against all odds. Or it could be a school that has gone beyond the curriculum with activities that have imbibed values in the students. People have stories. These stories we felt needed to be told, for there is always someone out there who could learn from them and be motivated. And these stories were from ordinary people, living normal lives. No PR, no glamour. This was a thought beyond HoopEx talks, behind HoopEx talks. It began as a stage for people to come and talk. We were apprehensive at first, but the reception was very, very encouraging. And there's one more thing we learned. The one who can give you the best advice is the one who has experienced the situation. No expert can ever replace that. So we had parents of special needs children discussing the journey dealing with issues. We have had single parents who have come and shared their lives. We have had parents who have discovered their individual hobbies and interests, which has helped them become better parents. So we had people from all walks of life who actually came and shared the journey with us. And it all served a purpose. People tried coming out and talking about their stories, issues they faced. This, we believe, is the first step towards change. People coming out and talking. Today, we have on our panel 3 very successful professionals who will talk about their journey as parents amidst their hectic schedules. And why did we choose this panel? Because we keep hearing about people struggling to balance work and life. People always complain of having no time. Today's session is to bring to light that if our 3 speakers can achieve professional success and also be good parents at the same time, then every one of us can. Also, please share your email IDs so that we can send participant certificates to each one of you and also keep you informed of our other exciting activities. So here we go. So much to learn from each other. I will now ask our panelists to introduce themselves and in just a couple of sentences, tell us why they agreed to be on the show. Manoj, can you go first?
Hey, good evening all, and so thanks so much, Bala, for the invitation, and really happy to be here. I met Bala a couple of months back. I think late last year, early this year is when I met Bala, and we started talking about all the exciting stuff which Hoopster does, and how it's trying to make a change in the community around us. And when Bala reached out to me and said, "Hey, we are conducting a session on how the big bosses have kind of managed to balance work life." I said, I was flattered to think that Bala thought that I'm a big boss, and I've kind of reached a certain level in whatever I do. So really, thank you, Bala, for that acknowledgement. But at the same time, I also thought that whether I don't know whether I'm the right person, because that whether I have the right balance or not in terms of work and life and how I'm managing at home. I had to really uh, take a day. I didn't immediately say yes. I had to go back to my family, ask my kids about, hey, when compared to all your other parents and your not other parents, other friends who have got parents, and how you say or you see what's happening around, do you think that we are okay? I didn't specifically ask whether I'm doing decently well or not, but I asked them whether do you think that we are okay as a family? Do you think that we are having fun? And she said, yeah, absolutely. I think I think it's a nice way by which we interact. So I think maybe that was one thing which gave me some confidence to come and probably share some of what I'm going through. And well, that's why I'm here. So thanks, Bala.
Anytime. And thanks for coming. Yeah. Priya, it'll be nice to have you. Come and tell us
Thank you
who
so
you
much.
are.
Thank you for inviting me, and good evening, my dear friends. It's such a pleasure to be amongst you all. My name is Priya Mallya, and I'm an IBMer. Bala and me have a common friend. The friend called me and said, Priya, I think you're a great mom. Why don't you get on a show? I was so thrilled to hear that I am a great mom. I have a 11-year-old son, Arav. I live in a joint family. I have my in-laws, my husband's brother, his wife, and all of them staying together. And amidst all the chaos that goes on at home, somebody calls me and says that you're a great mother. It feels really nice. When I spoke to Bala, he said, this is a very informal club. There'll be people coming over, sharing stories. The first thought that came to my mind is that I'll make new friends. And that's the whole reason I'm here. I don't know if I have great stories to tell, but I'm here to listen to everybody else's story as well. And if there's anything that I can talk about, experiences from my life, I'll be very happy to do so.
Thanks, Priya. Rajeev, would like to have a hello. Raju, can you hear me? Raju, Raju, can you hear me?
Can you hear me? I'm audible?
Yes.
You're audible. I can't see you, but
Okay. 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 Can I see you? Can you see me now?
yeah.
Okay. So first of all, thank you so much for having me. And if there are fathers on this forum today, I'll extend a very happy Father's Day to all of you. So when Bala reached out to me and said this was the topic and he would like me to be on the panel, I told him I can't offer any advice, but he asked me whether I can tell stories. And that's when I said, okay, I can come and share my experiences. So here I am as a father of a 7-year-old boy. His name is Adi. And I'm here to say some stories with all of you and then hear some of them from yours. So thanks, Bala, for having me.
Thanks, guys. I mean, it's wonderful to have all of you here. And I request the participants to share any questions that they want answered, because we have people here who are successful and who have been at your stage sometime in life. So feel free to ask questions. There's a chat box out there, and we'll try our best to answer it in whatever capacity we can. Okay, Raju, I'll begin with you. Do you really face any challenges with parents in your team? Raju, can you hear me?
Manoj, Bala, can you repeat the question?
Yeah. Do you face challenges in dealing with parents in your team?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been a manager for now 11 years, and there are challenges that parents face. We are living in busy times. There is a lot of balancing that parents need to do, especially when they don't have help at home, especially in the COVID times. I hear a lot of these parents who have the challenges balancing work because they have extended work hours, non-availability of maids, and different people at different stages of life, of course, as parents find it difficult to balance. And I think there's always a dilemma that I've seen, where parents think, are they doing the right things? Are they doing justice? Balancing what they need to do for their professional life and doing what is right for the family. So I think it's a very common feeling that people have that they live with in terms of not being able to strike that balance.
Priya, do you share that thought with Rajiv?
I do. And not just from the team. I think I have also had similar challenges in my 14 or 15 years in the industry. Many times trying to manage time, family, and work together, reprioritizing stuff when required. So I do share the same sentiments that Rajiv has.
Okay, coming to the point, do you think parents sometimes make their children the excuse for what they can't deliver?
I don't think, Bala, it's not an excuse. It is more like, not. I think these are very real life challenges that we face as parents. We are living in an environment where we have extended work hours. We participate with teams who are not just in the India time zone, many times in different professions. Not, I mean, three of us here in the panel belong to information technology. It's very common to have teams outside of India, but I'm sure in even other professions there will be issues with respect to time zone which needs you to extend work hours beyond the normal 9 to 5. And in those situations, having to manage your time with your work and with family always is a challenge. So children are not excuses. They are just, when we say that there is an issue managing our time or priority, it just means that there is this corner in our hearts or our mind that tells us that you need to reprioritize now and you need to bring some change in the way we are working.
That's interesting. Okay. But apart from the work pressure, what are other issues the parents face today? Well, I'm talking about working parents.
So I think for a working parent, it is more about making sure, at least for me, from my experience, it is about managing time. All the time we are on the toes. There is a to-do list that never ends. There are things to manage, right from making breakfast or lunch in the morning. And it's not just for a mother. I'm sure the fathers here also will agree that you have to manage taking children to the school, going to office, managing traffic. There are bosses, there is a team, there are meetings, there will be targets, come back, do the homework, manage kitchen. There it it's a daily grind. So if you look at it as a challenge, it's a challenge. If you look at it as part of life, it's part of life. I mean, I'm sure in all of this there are so many people involved, smiling faces, so many stories. I don't personally look at it as a challenge. It's, for me, it's part of life. That's how I look at it.
Manoj, you have anything else to share? Have you come across any other issues that parents face apart from the no time, very busy?
Well, of course, because I think I would just like to add on what Priya and Rajeev had mentioned in the earlier answers also, because you also said about whether parents kind of use their kids as excuses, right? I mean, well, that was one of your earlier questions, and I would say even if they do, it is nothing to be ashamed of, because they are part of your lives, and there are times when something else will come and you have to take priority. So I have always had this this major principle in life that when it comes to uh, important decisions, choose family over work. Okay, if there are if you actually have to attend a school PTA meeting during a weekday, and you have a very important work meeting, I would say that I've tried to, as much as I can, try to prioritize the fact that I attend the PTA meeting, because the official meeting does have an ability to get moved out, because we don't tend to say no to it. We just say that whatever comes, we have to say yes. So our ability to say no will also really open up a lot of things for us and give us some time to work for things which can really make you feel that you are available for your kids at home. And there are absolutely, well, there are issues which we face, and depending on what kind of kids you have at home, if they are toddlers to teenagers to older kids, the older they become, they are more self-sustainable, they can do things on their own. But if they're young kids, I think you do need a lot of attention at home, and you have to, timing becomes important. The availability of your availability or your spouse's availability really becomes important. And I distinctly, I mean, and it's easy for fathers, it's unfortunately a patriarchal system in India where the fathers would still have the liberty and the luxury of going to office and making sure. I do have an excuse of that I have a meeting. I can't come back home on time. But the moms don't, right? The moms have a very tough time in trying to balance it, because they have to, at least somebody needs to be there. So, and especially if you're living in a cellular family and you don't have enough support system back home, you have to, the moms would ultimately take the, I would say, the more responsibility, right, when it comes to a kid. So they would have to adjust their schedules and then come back home in order to be there for their kids. Whereas the dads always have this excuse that, no, I'm even more busy at work. So of course, well, there are issues which as parents, between the husband and wife, if we have a nice ability to balance out, hey, today I'm there, tomorrow I will not be there, and set some priorities, you should be able to adjust things.
You know, at one point you're saying that time is an issue, but when I asked all the three of you as to what is it, what do you want to talk about? One thing that was very common amongst all three was that the parent should find a hobby. It helps. Now, at one level, you're saying there's no time shortage. One thing, find one more hobby. So I'm sure all of you have done something around hobby in your lives. That's why you're talking about it. So can you tell us why is hobby important and how did you manage it? What are your hobbies? How did it help you? Manoj, you can continue. I'll go to Priya and Rajeev.
Okay. So that's a very good question, Bala, and I really believe that finding a hobby or finding something for the whole family to do together will be a very nice way to spend time, because our interest levels are different and all that. So for me, in my case, I've learned classical dance when I was decades ago, and I still dance once in a while, and I happen to pass that on to my kids. So my kids, both I've got a daughter who's 14 and a son who's 8. Both my kids dance. Daughter dances classical dancing and hip hop now. My son is into hip hop dancing. My wife dances as well. So I think we kind of have at least one hobby which we try and do, because with TikTok now, obviously the teenagers are totally into it. And my daughter, almost on every alternate day, she comes and says, "Oh, daddy, mommy, oh, we have to do this dance." And then she teaches us, and then we end up doing something together. It's fun. It's a fun thing. It's a fun thing to do together. In that process, learn something about, okay, so who did you do this? Who did you learn these steps from? And then you get to also know about their friends. It's a great way to bond. So it can be dance, it can be music, it can be art. I think any of these things really help to create a space to spend amongst yourself. So I'm not just talking about like a hobby, but if you can take your kids for tennis, running, walking, badminton, I think all these are great opportunities for you to bond with your kids.
I know, it's so true. We just realized, today when the conversation between parents and children is almost zero, there are exactly 6 sentences that an average parent speaks to an average child, and it's like, how was school? Did you do your homework? Go to sleep, come to food, come to eat. There are exactly 6 sentences. Priya, what's your view on this? You also suggested hobbies are important. So what are you doing about it?
Yes. So let me be very honest. When I had my son 11 years back and I was trying to get back to work, hobbies were the last thing in my list. Just making sure that I clear my mailbox and make sure that I have cooked healthy food and kept my son clean and neat every day and put him to sleep was the most important task, and hobbies were nowhere there. I had a lot of my friends, my parents, my in-laws who would always tell me, take care of yourself, find time for yourself, and I would feel that they are making fun of me. I'm struggling for time, and these people want me to get back to hobbies, read books, and you're creative and get into a lot of other things that I would do before. And and I had no time at all. So much so that, I used to love, going out and shopping and eating, and I didn't have time for even that, because, I used to stay very far away from our office, long working days, and a very mischievous son at home. So it was all very difficult. But over time, I realized it's not just I learned to do hobbies. I think it was my son who taught me, let's do something together. We started reading storybooks when he was about 3, 4, 5 years old, and started to read, started to understand stories. It was about getting back to books. When he started to read himself, we were both doing our own reading. So that is how I started to get back to my hobbies. He loves food, and so does my husband and everybody else at home. So it was more about me getting to do something nice and creative in the kitchen, because I like cooking, and that's another hobby as well. And it was to do with what people like. It was about how managing what you like to do, aligning to our chores. If cooking was to be done like a task, I would have never enjoyed it. I do cooking as a hobby now, and I love it. Similarly, if reading books to my son was a chore, I would have not done it. But now I like doing it because I have always liked to read as well. We read different things now, and I like it. Initially, it was very looking at pictures and reading. Trust me, when it started, it was not something I liked. After a very tiring day, I would just want to sleep, and then I have to sit and read what's a tiger and what's a zebra. It's not the best thing I wanted to do, but then he liked to do it. And that's how I think I got back to my hobbies over a period of time. He's now 11 years old. He's more or less independent with respect to doing his work, eating his food, reading himself, keeping himself a little busier than he was about 4 or 5 years ago. And so I get to do things that I probably would do independently. And trust me, when I say hobbies, I just don't mean hobbies. It's more about uh, having some space for myself where I will do what I like to do, which means that on a Sunday afternoon, if I leave home and go for a nice massage in the spa, I'm not ashamed to say I want to do it and I enjoy it. And that's how I feel rejuvenated at the end of those 2 hours.
So how does one motivate themselves to pick up a hobby? Or in your case, you said about a talk about the spa and stuff like that. How do you get over the guilt feel? Guilt is a very big component in our lives. So people feel guilty about doing something. People feel guilty about their own time space.
I don't feel guilty anymore, Bala. That's because I think it's all about what kind of boundaries you define for yourself, after which you think that it is guilt. So if you feel, a couple of hours in a week for yourself, because you have done what you wanted to do in your to-do list, I don't feel guilty about it, because I have done what is required, what I define my responsibilities are for my family.
So how does one motivate themselves to do something? And that's a big thing which is lacking nowadays. People are not motivated.
I can only talk for myself. So let me tell you how it was not about motivating myself. There comes a point beyond which you have to do something. I mean, it comes a point where there either it leaves a void in you that you're not doing enough, you're not being happy, you're not excited. You are just doing things as a chore. And I think that's the tipping point. Beyond that, you will not be able to sustain yourself just doing chores. You need a let out, you need something else to do. And that was a realization maybe I had. It was no motivation, and after that it was just fun.
That's interesting. Rajeev, what are your thoughts on this? Hobbies, motivation?
Yeah, I think so. In terms of, I'll just take it from what you said about we feeling guilty. I think kids observe us all the time, and they can sense if we are not happy with ourselves, if they think we are not though feeling happy, and they can sense if we are restless. So I think so. Taking care of ourselves, no indulging ourselves, no once in a while, I think so is a good thing because kids sense it. I also believe that there has to be a kind of a ritual with kids which allows them to peek into our lives, and us to peek into their lives is an important thing. For me, it is no storytelling, and by storytelling, me and my 7-year-old son create stories every evening. So every night before we get to sleep, and this is something we have been doing for the last 2 years. He would give me a theme, and I would have to weave a story about it. So when he was 5 years old, and he would say, "Tell me something about, no, tell a story about aloe vera." No, I would cook something up and no, tell him the stories. And at the end of the day, I would tell him, no, what do you think is the moral of the story? And as we know, as it became a ritual and we started doing these stories on a daily basis, uh, I now get a peek into his life. So current series that we're running is about superheroes, where every night there is Casper the Friendly Ghost who comes to him, and he gets his gadget and he can go and visit any of his superheroes. So I'm beginning to learn about superheroes that I never heard of, and he's beginning to now add to those stories. He decides what kinds of gadgets, and what it has allowed me to do is to get a glimpse into his life. I think so when kids are younger, they invite you into their world, and then you become a part of their world. As they become teenagers, I think so you will need to peek into them. So for me, it's a big uh, no it's a big stress buster at the end of the night when we are creating those stories, because he would go the next morning and tell my wife on what sort of new gadgets Papa thought about, and know how we both fought together, and know the evils of the world and stuff like that. So storytelling, no, and creating those stories, funny, crazy, stupid, wild, is no, my getaway every evening with my son.
Rajeev, I want to ask a question, ask Priya again. See, one of the things I have come across in my research and all that is that the child is always excited to do something with the parents. Okay. And the child comes and tells the parent, let's do this. And 99% of the time, the parent says, hey, I'm tired, I'm busy, just do it on your own. What's your advice to the such parents? And then that's 99% of them. Hardly one person which says, hey, let's do something together. So what's your advice to them, and what do you think they're missing out?
Sorry.
Was that?
Is that
Anybody can. Can you hear me? I lost
Yeah. So we can hear you, Bala.
Yeah, Manoj, you can carry on. I think Raju lost me.
So was the question for me?
Yeah, anybody.
Okay.
Sure, Manoj is
So
on. Okay, Manoj is on camera right now. So let's start.
Okay.
okay, sure.
So I think I'm guilty of that. Okay. I was one of those in the past. I was one of those people who used to be tied to this phone all the time, and unfortunately, you know, well, the kind of life which we live, I don't think that there is a fine line between where work starts and ends and where your personal life starts and ends, right? So I was guilty of that in the past, and then I've kind of revisited that multiple times. I've heard my son saying that, yeah, I say something and you don't listen. Like, wow, okay, that was very powerful statements from him, and I realized that the quantity of time which you spend with your kids are not important as the quality of time. It's not as much important as the quality of time. As long as, even if you're spending only half an hour or 1 hour in the morning, another 1 hour or 2 hours in the evening, as long as you are able to give them quality attention, I think they would realize the fact that, okay, I've been listened to, my parents listen to me, they are interested in what I'm saying. And you're absolutely right that we are all guilty of the fact that this digital device which we call a phone, that is constantly there with us, and there are enough and more distractions for us all around. And at some point of time we have to say, okay, it's if somebody is saying something, especially when you're kids, when they're saying and talking to you, either you have to tell them. So I have decided, and this is a practice which I've been doing. If I'm really doing something, I will say, hey, you know what, I don't say hmm hmm because then they know that you're not listening, right? I would say, hey, you know what, hey, that's important, so let me just finish this, and I'll come back to you. Let me finish responding to this email or this chat or something like that, and I'll say, hey, just give me 2 minutes and then come back to you. So they've started to respect the fact that I'm actually involved in something or I'm doing something, and then they give me that time. And then I also respect the word which I've given to them. It said, hey, I'll come back in 2 minutes. So I do put on my phone, I listen to them, I kind of say, okay, what's happening, what do you want to know? And even within the house, if my daughter is talking to me and then my son interrupts, I say, hey, no, hold on, she's talking, so let her finish and then we'll talk, right? And then that's been the kind of a ritual which we have kind of said that if you're talking to each other, we'll make sure that if somebody is busy, you understand and acknowledge the fact that somebody is busy, and then you give them the time to say, okay, 2 minutes, are you done? So can I talk now? Okay. And then you kind of said that. So I think that ability to prioritize what is important, because you might be doing something is important, so let's get that done. Because when you think you are multitasking, it is one of the biggest uh, issues which we have. We cannot multitask for nuts, and we just do a very, very bad job. And especially at home, we tend to think that, oh, we have this great ability to multitask, but our kids, as Rajeev mentioned, they observe, right? They really observe how as parents, we do monkey see, monkey do, exactly the same thing, right? They observe, and we are not abiding by the rules we set. They'll say, it's not important enough, so they kind of tend to give the same kind of treatment to others as well. So this is something which we have set up as a engagement principle at home.
No, it's interesting you're doing that, because like I mentioned earlier, the communication between the parents and children are, is actually come to zero. And the second fact which is very sad is, actually, among Indian circles, Indian environment, once you're married, you give up half your interest. Then once you get a child, you forget about everything that you were, and you just become a parent, and your whole world circles around parenting. Which is very sad, because giving up yourself or the interest you have kills most of you. So what we have actually done in Hoopsters is, after all the research we've done, we have a program called Rediscover the Me in the Parent. And we've got some very interesting stories, how people have gotten back to the dance that you're interested in, or there's a couple which has taken the child, driven all the way to Paris by road, and how they've taken them around and got their travel bug back. So there's people are collecting stamps together and going back to the coin collection, things like that, which has been exciting. Now, other thing which was common between all three of you is that quality or quantity, which you guys are addressed anyway. But tell me, Manoj, and I can ask you, Priya, let me come to Priya on this. Has there been a difference between parenting 5 years, 10 years ago to parenting today? What do you see being different in your corporate environment? Priya, you want to come on this?
Yeah. So more or less what I have seen is, whether it is now 5 years down the line or, 5 years back, I think the essence of parenting will not change. And I don't believe anything can change at all. It is finally, at the end of the day, the bond that a mother or father shares with the child. What I shared when I was a child, or what my son shares with me, is no different. And I don't think any number of years from now or any number of years before now, it has been any different. I think the circumstances are different. Our ways of life, our ways of dealing with certain changes in our circumstances are slightly different. Otherwise, I don't think the principles, if you say, of parenting have changed or will change from now. And I strongly believe that.
But isn't there much more higher level of peer pressure today?
Oh, totally. Yeah, absolutely. Agree. Because even though, I mean, I think the essence of parenting has not changed. What parents want from kids have not changed, because even 20 years back, the parents want their kids to do well. Even now, it's exactly the same thing. I mean, I don't think there is any parent in the world who thinks that, you know what, I'm going to wake up in the morning and experiment with my kids, right? As a parent, we all, and there is, if only, well, there was a book which says that if you follow all these 10 different things, that you can ensure that your kids are successful. And because there is no such rule book, and there is this constant pressure around, either you have to send your kids for extracurricular activities, the performing arts, sports, it could be tuition, just the basic things like tuition, just the fact that your kid may not require tuitions at all. But what if what if you don't send and your kid kind of falls back in the class, right? And there is this peer pressure is always there, and and it has increased for sure. I don't think there is no denying that fact, um, because even in as if the platforms where your kids can actually go ahead and perform have actually increased, and because of that you have multiple options where your kids can actually excel as well. So if the pressure, when I say peer pressure, the pressure in the parent's mind is that, am I exposing my kids enough so that they are getting exposed to all these various opportunities which are out there? Because what the kind of opportunities which were there 10 years back or even 15 years back is way different, right? I mean, the number of just the, even if you're a kid who's interested in singing or music or dance or any, there are so many channels on which you can then aspire to go and show your talent. So that pressure is there. But I would say that essence of parenting, I would agree with Priya that that's really not changed a lot. The peer pressure will continue to be there, as and when we are trying to fight for the best schools, best admissions, best colleges. You need to prepare your kid to get ahead of the line. So that aspect is anywhere there.
Rajiv, do you agree with this?
I think just the nature of pressure changes. I mean, the pressure of today, that comes from social media or access to social media, or the pressure to be doing well as compared to your peers in the multitude of platforms that are available. I think the nature of the pressure changes. I mean, it's very common when three generations. I have my father with me, and no, my father would say something different in terms of the kinds of pressures he had when he was raising us. We have different kinds of pressures, but I think pressures, the nature of pressure changes. But again, I would agree with both Manoj and Priya that parenting, or what a child needs or what a parent wants to do for kid, remains the same. When I took up this role, and no, there was an elevation in my role and there was a lot of work pressure, and I started feeling a little challenge in terms of how to balance the time I was spending with my family and my kids. I got an advice from one of my mentors that had stayed on with me, and he said, you should start looking at, instead of how much time you're spending, how much energy. Look at energy management instead of how much time you're spending. And when you begin to look at things like that, your perspective changes. You begin to look at how you're spending that time and how much you're spending that time. I remember 2 years back, my wife had to travel to her hometown, and I had to take care of my son for 2 days. And simple things like watching the cartoon with him together, or no, because I was forced to look at his diary and see what sort of homework I had to do. I spent that Saturday with him doing very, very little things. And at the end of the day, he asked me for a piece of paper, and I gave him that, and he scribbled something, and he said, "Papa, you are the bestest. I love you, Papa." And I was wondering to myself, what did I do, that made him so happy? And I think what kids really need is a meaningful time with them, the little things that we can do lots of them, give them undivided attention, even if it's in short bursts. And when we are able to do that, I think so the pressure of how much time I have to spend, am I able to carve out that time? Am I able to do big things with them? Am I able to plan vacations for them? Goes away. I think so. Little things. It could be anything like hugging them, asking them how their day was, who their favorite teacher is. I think even if it is 5 minutes, through the day, where you give them undivided attention, I think so. It makes a lot of difference. No, I tried all of these no theories of carving out 1 hour per day of uninterrupted time and all of that. I don't think so that really works. What you really need to be able to do is do those little things, do a lot of those, and be very, very genuine and meaningful.
But Rajiv, you got to agree that the corporate world 10 years ago and the corporate world today is really different, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
so,
And that yeah. Sorry, go
so
ahead.
doesn't that affect the way you're thinking? I see more parents paranoid today, and they're really paranoid compared to say 10 years back or 12 years back.
Yeah, I agree with you in terms of It's just not only the corporate pressures. I mean, I came to Bangalore 20 years back, and the amount of time I used to spend in traffic was far less as I do that. And I perfectly understand, the pressures of the corporate world, and as a result of which, the guilt in parents of not being able to spend time. And that's why I believe that whether it is 10 years back or now, if we are able to find those time spots with our kids where we can give them undivided attention, I think so. It basically makes all the difference.
So how do you find that time? How does one find that time? That's the issue everyone's facing.
Yeah. So when you look at slices of time, I mean, I look at all the transitions that happen. So if I come back from home and I know my son has been waiting, I may be taking 2 minutes, instead of just going to the laptop, maybe asking how his day was. I know for a fact that when his online classes started, the first day I did spend more time with him, maybe an hour or so, to understand, to make sure that he was okay. But after that, it's just about asking him, things like what his favorite subject was, what did he learn over a dinner conversation. We have to steal these slices of time. And I think so once we are in that mindset, at the end of the day, I believe it's the mindset. At the end of the day, if you're able to steal those slices of time, however short they are, I think so it's good. It's just coming and just telling them, "No, I'm there for you," or asking questions, or understanding what they learned new today, taking a look at their diary, and making sure the homework is done. Those little things. I think so if you're able to take time, we'll be able to find time if we really want to. Sometimes I don't look. I think that the pressure of saying I have 24 hours in a day and I have to be able to do so much in a day with children. I think so it puts a lot of pressure. I mean, there are days when I may not be able to spend that time, but I look back at a week and say, okay, have I been able to spend enough time? Have I been able to do things that my child felt that I was with him? I think so is okay. I think so. Taking too much pressure of being able to do a certain set of things, I think so that is what puts in a lot of pressure. But otherwise, I think those little nuggets of time we can always find.
Bala, I would like to. Sorry, Rajeev. So I thought you were done.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead, please.
Yeah, Manoj, how do you steal that time?
No, I think it's an important question about it's not about stealing the time, but it's about creating time, right? And obviously we all know that all of us have only 24 hours a day. But what I've realized is that as and when you grow up in your corporate ladder, obviously your responsibilities increase and what you have to do increases. So what I've really learned is that when you learn to delegate a lot at work, you will be able to create time for yourself. Because a lot of times we all think that as an individual I have to do the things which I have to do only, and only I can do it well. But it also helps if you delegate and train other people in your team to do as good a job as you are, so that when things fall into your plate, you can say, okay, Mr. A do this, Mr. B do this, Mr. C do this. You're not escaping time, right? You're not escaping work. Essentially, you're saying that you can delegate work so that you're also teaching others in your team, and that frees away some amount of time on your plate. And that time, then it becomes a choice whether you decide to take something more at office, or you go back home and tend to spend time with your family. Because you can't just create time. I mean, the create time, additional time, you only have to do with the time which we all have, right? So that's been a wonderful trick which I've really learned, and thankfully it's worked in my case.
But Manoj, what happens if you're down the line? You're on a manager level where you've been given work from your bosses.
Mhm.
What happens to that category of people? That's one. And second can you really today people, there are two things I notice when I make films for corporates is that either I don't want to take extra burden, like you said, delegate. I will not take extra burden, or I'm not interested, or I'm not qualified enough. So how does that manage? See, you're talking from a manager's point of view. I can delegate work.
Yeah.
Lower down the food chain.
No, and you're absolutely right. I think your ability to say no becomes really important, because as the typical ITES industry, we have in the last 20 years, 25 years, we say, oh, the clients are coming, the US, Europe, we just have to say yes to everything. And we have in that space where we think that we do not have a choice to say no. When we either, even when our bosses give us work, they are not unreasonable. They might say, hey, I want this done by Monday, but if you think that you need more time, you can actually reset expectations. If we feel that we do not have the ability to reset expectations, is because we don't spend enough time in creating that relationship, right? So but you do have that, you do have the ability to say no, or not. I cannot do that by the end of the day. I would probably do it by Monday. Or you want it done, is it okay as long as I'm able to get it done? Can I do it through somebody else? Your client sets up a meeting on a Friday evening, your time. You have the ability to say no. You have the ability to reset or reschedule that call. We just think that no. If the client is saying, we have to say yes to everything. We fail to recognize the fact that they're all human beings, also having families, and they all have their own personal priorities as well. It's not a company talking to a company, right? It's a human being talking to a human being. So as long as you are able to relate to them at that level, I think it is something which you have to learn to say no. That art of saying no, I mean, without really pushing them in the wrong corner, right? I mean, that ability to say no and reset expectations, I think that creates time for you.
Priya, do you agree with that?
So when I became a mother, I was down the chain that you're talking about. So it was not that I was calling shots. I was the one who was being given tasks to do. But I think over the last 11 years, what has worked for me is that strong ecosystem of support that I could create, along with me as we moved. So my child became a part of my work, and my work was my child's, growing up years as well. Everybody at work knew exactly those small coffee conversations, those, chit chat stories at lunch tables involved everybody who was working with me know what's happening in my life, whether it was Arav having an exam in the next 2 days, or I having to do some project work after I go back home, or if he was unwell and I had to take him to the doctor. I had friends at work who stood up for me when I was away. Similarly at home, there were I'm blessed. Actually, I have a very strong support system at home. I have my mother-in-law, who actually supports me very much in my work. She knows my schedule maybe more than I do, on when my meetings are, when my travel plans are, and she stands up managing not just the house but also my child. So I think I leveraged it quite a lot. I mean, it's always about give and take. So when somebody needs, I do it. When I need, I get it back. So it's not about creating time or the quality. I think it, work and my child were all both part of the growing up years for me.
So can you give us an incident where you had to decide between home and work, a very critical situation? How did you manage it? I'm sure over the years there were days when you had to choose, right?
Oh yes, there were several, and there were several. I mean, it still happens when you have to choose between an important meeting and you getting a call from school saying your son has fallen down and hurt himself. But that's the beauty of the support system, when your colleagues stand up for you and say it's okay, leave everything and just run to school. And I have done that. Similarly, on a Sunday morning, I wake up and I realize that there's some fire going on at work. I cannot go back to the kitchen. I can't cook. I can't, take care, don't do homework. And just being honest about it and saying that, guys, this is what has happened. I need the day off today from everything at home. Please support me on it. And I have gotten that support. I think all we have to do is just be honest. There is no shame in asking for help. I have felt it very difficult when I first started to ask for help. But over time, it's not that, I have, like, that is the first question you asked. Am I making it an excuse? So whether, children were excuses at office or office was excuse at not doing homework, they are not. I think it's sometimes just the help, the honesty with which you ask, the kind of rapport you have with the people around you. It all makes it very simple at the end of the day.
Rajeev, what's your view on this?
No, I agree with both of them that we have to get more effective. We need to create time. I think about getting the right kind of support system, but I also feel that how do we funnel that time back again? I mean, if we are getting more productive at work by delegating work and reusing that time again to do something else in office, I think so that doesn't solve the purpose. So while we should try and see how we can get more effective at office, how we can delegate, how we can create more time for ourselves, I still believe that we will have to make sure that we find those slices of time with our kids, and that's not difficult. And I think that requires a mindset change. No, not having to. So I have never strived to see if there is a balance or there is a work-life integration stuff like that. I've always tried to see that can I make that mindset change to say when I come back from office, however busy that day may have been, I find something. It could be a little bit of a time or more time, whatever it is, depending upon that. And if I couldn't do it in that day or the next day, I don't feel guilty about it. I'll say, okay, did I need to do something in that week? So I think so that mindset change to say that I need to do those little things, I think so is important. And for
Rajeev,
one day it could just be, yeah.
I mean, you guys started your career 20 years in IBM and stuff like that. Can you go back the last 20 years and tell us what did you do right that you 20 years later you have been successful in a career, and your child actually says, I love you, thank you very much. So what did you do right? What are the small things that you thought that you did right?
I think it is priorities that you set for yourself, right from the beginning. I think so. We always need to know what makes us happy and what we think is when we look back in life, what is a well-meaning life. And I think so throughout the career, striking that balance in terms of what the right priorities are was important for me. I think there were times in my career when I went slow. There were times in my career where I had the support, I took the opportunities. I think cultivating a strong network of support is useful, not only in terms of how people can pitch in and help, but people you can go and talk to, have conversations, get advice. I think so. Also having a strong network and support system is very, very important, both on the work front and also in your social circles.
Priya, what did you do right, Priya?
If I were to pick up one thing that I would have probably done right uh, in the last many years to maintain, the balance, like Rajiv said, work life, balance, integration, whatever. I remember of a senior of ours many years back who was once telling me, Priya, in the phrase work life balance, it's the balance, the word balance, which is the most important, and not very specifically work and life. So learn to balance first. But anyways, uh, if there's one thing that I did different, or rather I did well probably, is just being transparent. Uh, Transparent about everything at work or at home. It could be frustration, it could be ambitions, it could be being busy, it could be being lazy, whatever it is. I was just transparent. I think I was lucky that people around me found that I was honest in being transparent. It's not that, uh, I would do it too often, but then whenever required, I just make sure that this is what it is. I can do it, I can't do it. I'm happy, sad, angry, whatever it is. It was always on my face. And it was always something that everybody knew about. And that's how I conduct myself.
Manoj, what did you do right?
I don't know what I did right, but before I get to that, I just want, both Rajiv and Priya kind of alluded to the fact that work-life balance, right? So I somehow think that this whole term itself, work-life balance, is a big misnomer, because that's a myth in itself, which essentially means that you're having work on one side and life on the other side, and you're trying to balance the both. Unless we think that work is part of life, and I don't think that if you do more work, then you should not have a life, or if you are focusing on your life, then you're not focusing on work. I think that's a big misnomer about it. And I really like Jeff Bezos, the CEO of Amazon, who said that he likes the word work-life harmony more than work-life balance, because unless you are gelling both work and life, I don't think that really makes a difference. And another thing which I consciously try and do is the trying to differentiate between who I am and what I do, because who I am is is as a person, who you are, the kind of value systems you have, the kind of behaviors you actually display both at work and at home. um, as a person, how do you behave, right? What drives you? So that is essentially who you are. And then what you do is just, it changes from role to role. Today I'm doing one role, what I do will be ABC. 1 year later, if I change my role, what I do will actually change. But that essentially need not change who I am. So as long as I'm actually able to be happy with who I am, I have been able to essentially also been able to give 100% to what I do. Because if there is a big gap between who you are as a person and then what you do, then you'll not be happy doing what you're doing, and that will not translate into other additional roles, and you'll not go up in life. So I've luckily been able to really really balance that between who I am and what I do, able to bring in a lot of who I am to work, and integrate that to what I do. And hence I've always enjoyed that. And when you enjoy doing what you're doing, I think your bosses also see it, your managers also see it, and then you think that, okay, well, this guy has got some potential to do something else, and you always get something additional to do. And then, well, that's how I've
Manoj, you
managed
have
to.
a team. You have a team. When you look at the team, youngsters who are parents, the younger ones who are parents, where do you think they are going wrong? Do you ever feel that they are going wrong somewhere?
Wow, that's a good question. I mean, who am I to judge whether they are going right or wrong? Because we all think, every parent wakes up in the morning and says that I have to do the best for my kids. So I am nobody to judge whether they're right or wrong. And I don't think there is anybody who thinks that they would want to experiment with their kids as well, right? So I think it's a very pompous statement for me to make, if I look at somebody and say, oh, that guy is doing something wrong, or this 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 team member who's just become a dad, he is doing something wrong. No, I don't think so. I don't think I've gone to that level to point fingers and say, oh, I'm doing something right but he's wrong. But essentially, I think it's again, as Priya and Rajeev had mentioned earlier, it's about the pressure of parenting. Because you have gray hair, which I don't have, but I used to have, that you have kind of gone through that phase, and you'll say, hey, this too shall pass, right? As a parent, you are going through initial phases, you're going through all the different kind of stresses in life. And when you have a teenage daughter who's 15, who's 14, 15, who's going through 15, you kind of know, you've seen all these things, right? It's not so much to be concerned about. But as a parent who's just got a kid, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, and going through, they're tense, they're stressed, it is not to say that they have no right to be there or they are doing something wrong. It's just that that is a learning process for them. And the more they experience that, the more they go through that, I think we all become better parents and individuals and adults.
Priya, do you agree with Manoj?
I absolutely agree with Manoj on that one.
Rajeev, what about you?
Yeah, I agree. And in fact, I think at least the young parents in my team, I think so. They are more clearer. They are more open. They ask for help. They balance stuff. Quite well actually. That's what I have seen.
Okay, I think we're running out of time. We have 1 hour on that. Any last bit of advice to the parents? There's so much more to talk about. Anything to the young parents out there? Because after the COVID, and all of you know that there's going to be a different story. Apart from working from home, you'll see a lot of stress out there, leading to a lot of mental health issues, a lot of other things which are actually surfacing. And that's the reality on ground. Any piece of advice from you guys?
I think I can end my part of it by kind of revisiting a WhatsApp forward, which I really got whatever a week back, 2 weeks back, after the Sushant Singh Rajput suicide, and there were so many memes and forwards which were going around. Really talks about how we have been focused on developing our kids' IQ, right? Sending them learning, making sure that they really learn about a lot of stuff at school. And then there's this whole thing about EQ, emotional quotient. Daniel Goleman, when he introduced emotional quotient, he said that somebody with a higher EQ is going to do much better in life than somebody with a higher IQ. And then with social media, which has actually come in, there is this whole concept of SQ as well, which is social quotient, but how our kids are able to interact with one another, with people, with peers, that whole aspect of, because with gadgets, you are just inside that and you feel that that's the world. And how are you exposing them to a more social environment? So making sure that we develop SQ for our kids as well. And then the latest thing which people are talking about is AQ, which is adversity quotient. How are we training our kids to deal with failures in life, right? Or an adverse events, which should not really destroy them. At a point of time when kids also get participation medals for running and coming last in sports, we used to get only the first, second, and third, right? Gold, silver, and bronze. But now everybody gets a participation medal. We all get the certificate. So kids really feel that, I'm a winner. And when they really grow up and get into the big bad world, and reality strikes them, and the first adversity, love failure, will they do bad at work? Um, it should not destroy them. So our, as parents, our ability to deal with them and to ensure that they realize that failures are also part of life, and how do they come out of those adversities, and how do we um, how do we really support them when they are going through phases like that? I think is going to really determine how successful they will eventually become. So that's
Thanks,
how I
Priya.
want to.
Thanks, Manoj. Priya, what's your
So,
take on that?
so when I was in hostel, there used to be a poster that used to be hanging on my cupboard. I used to read it every day. I still have it. I'll just read out um, a couple of lines from that. That has always, motivated me all along on how I look at things. Circumstances were different in college. It was different when I started to work. It was different when I became a mother. It's very different today when my son has grown up a little bit more. But then the essence of these few lines have not changed. I have gotten back something to take away from that. Today, I tell this to my son as well. It goes like this: success begins with a fellow's will. It's all in the state of mind. Life's battles don't always go to the stronger or faster man, but sooner or later, the man who wins is the one who thinks he can. I just think that having hope, determination, and keeping at it at any time, whether it is giving an exam, whether it is going and giving an interview, or even sitting in a parent teachers meeting at my son's school, uh, it's all something that I always go with a little bit of anxiety and nervousness. But then if I think I can, I will do.
Thank you. That's wonderful. Rajeev?
I think two important things. One is having conversations, especially when we are in the post-COVID era. Conversations for our own well-being, having with friends or parents or loved ones. Having a lot of conversations, I think, is important for us to deal with anxiety. Having open conversations with even kids, not having any pretense, being open about things and talking to them about some of these things that are happening. And I think so, as one of the things that we should also do is teach our kids gratitude, and an importance of being thankful for what we have. Because I believe if you have the attitude of gratitude, that will help build resilience in kids as they grow, grow further.
Thanks,
These
thanks, Rajeev. Thanks a lot. Hey, thank you, guys. And there are issues here. As a filmmaker, I actually deal with a lot of research, and I meet people on ground. And I have seen a lot of problems out there which nobody's really talking about. So our attempt to work on Hoopsters and build get people together and build this community and stuff like that is all about this whole thing of hope. And the fact that if somebody can do, I can do, or I can do, I have power. It's basically trying to inspire people and do something. So thank you for being there. We are doing our small little bit in the whole story, and please do keep in touch. And thanks, Rajeev, Manoj, Priya. We can go on and on about this, but we do close if we are 1 hour through. And would really appreciate if you could spread the word around, and we need to make the difference, because mental health issues are really, really out there, and it's real. Okay? So we are working around it, working to solve a lot of issues, building a lot of team out there. So thank you very much, and hope to see you soon. And keep your support to us going. We need it bad. Okay. Thanks, Priya. Thanks, Manoj. Thanks, Rajeev.
Thank you so much, Bala. It was
Thank you very much.
I hope you enjoyed it. And I'm sure somebody will benefit something with what you said. That's very important for us. There is somebody out there who will benefit out of this. We are sure about that. So thanks, guys. And for all the participants, please keep in touch with us. You can write to us at info@hoopsters.in or bala@4c.in. Share your stories, because in all the programs we do, we are looking for people to come and participate. And your stories might help somebody else. And keep in touch with us on Facebook and Instagram at hoopsters.in. Lots of fun things coming up, a lot of interesting things coming up. So see you soon. Have fun. Have a lovely evening. And take care. And please share your email ID so we can get in touch with you. Thanks, Manoj. Thanks a lot. Thanks, Priya. Thanks, Rajeev.
Thank
God
you.
bless. Have a lovely
Bye-bye.
evening. Thank you very much.
Too.
Very good.